Today, we're going to dig into one of the most incredible bank heists in history. Seriously, it's a crime so meticulously planned and so perfectly executed, it feels like it was ripped straight from a Hollywood script. And at the very heart of this story is a staggering amount of money, 160 million Brazilian reais. Just let that number sink in. For the crew that pulled this off, this wasn't just a payday. This was the kind of prize that changes absolutely everything. So the big question is, how in the world do you even begin to get your hands on that much cash, especially when it's locked away deep inside a high-security federal bank vault? Well, the answer isn't about explosions or brute force. It's about a masterpiece of criminal engineering. Now, the target here was the Banco Central branch in Fortaleza, Brazil. And look, we're not talking about your average local bank. This is part of the country's central banking system. Think reinforced concrete walls, motion sensors, alarms, basically a fortress designed to be completely impenetrable. The date is absolutely key here, the weekend of August 6th, 2005, a time when the bank would be closed up tight, totally quiet, and you'd think totally secure. But underneath the city streets, a wild plan was about to come to its amazing conclusion. So how did they pull it off? You have to understand, this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. No, this was an unseen plan, an incredibly complex operation that took months and months of careful planning, backbreaking labor, and of course, absolute secrecy. The gang's approach was just genius. First, they rented a property right nearby, pretending to be an artificial grass company so nobody would get suspicious. And from there, they started digging. For 3 solid months, they dug out a 78-meter tunnel, and get this, it even had wood paneling, lights, and air conditioning, all leading to one spot, directly underneath the bank's vault. You know, this whole operation was way more than just digging a hole. It really required a deep understanding of engineering, of geology, all combined with this ironclad discipline to keep the entire project completely hidden right there in plain sight. So the tunnel is finally complete, and the stage is set. After months of secret, hard work, the plan was finally ready to go into action. And over a single weekend, this gang would pull off what many still call the perfect crime. On that Saturday, they broke through the vault floor. That's over a meter of steel-reinforced concrete. Then they spent the entire weekend just hauling out cash. We're talking an estimated 3.5 tons of it, all in used, untraceable 50 real notes. And here's the unbelievable part. No alarms went off. Not one. Nobody suspected a single thing. So when the bank employees showed up for work on Monday morning, they opened the vault and just found a giant hole in the floor and tons of cash just gone. The thieves had a full 2-day head start. But this is where the story takes a really dark and violent turn. See, getting the money was one thing, but keeping it and keeping their lives, well, that turned out to be a whole other problem. The perfect heist started to fall apart in the most brutal way you can imagine. The original crew is believed to have had about 25 people, a pretty tight group who somehow pulled off the impossible. But here's the thing. In the criminal world, a score that big doesn't buy you safety. It paints a massive target on your back for every rival who knows you're suddenly carrying a fortune you can't exactly deposit. Just look at what happened to Luis Fernando Ribeiro, the guy who was supposedly the mastermind. One minute, he's the leader of this legendary heist. The next, he's kidnapped by a rival gang, and even after his family pays a hefty ransom, he's found murdered. His own success made him a target. And Ribeiro's story wasn't a one-off. A vicious wave of kidnappings and extortions just ripped through the crew. I mean, they couldn't go to the police, and everyone knew they were sitting on piles of cash, which made them the perfect victims. As the police closed in, the violent fallout became just as famous as the clever tunnel that started it all. The numbers really paint a grim picture of what happened next. What started with this core group of about 25 people just spiraled out of control, leading to 129 arrests. The web of crime and violence just kept getting wider and wider. So what happened to all that money? Well, the difference is just staggering. Of the $160 million that was stolen, the police only ever recovered about $32 million. The rest of it, the vast majority of that fortune, it just vanished. Spent, laundered, or maybe it's still buried somewhere forever. Which really leaves us with one final, haunting question. The plan, it was genius. The execution was flawless. But when you weigh that massive fortune against the kidnappings, the murders, and the years and years spent in prison, you really have to ask yourself, was the perfect crime actually worth the price?